Welcome to the RSVP Northern Virginia podcast, where each week we'll take a look at some of the outstanding volunteer opportunities available to seniors in our area. I'm your host, Rob Payne, an outreach assistant with RSVP. Welcome to our newest podcast. This is Rob Payne with RSVP, and today we are with Mackie Smith. Dee, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Dee, just tell us a little bit about your RSVP adventure. You've been with RSVP coming up on 2 years. How did you first find out about RSVP?
I found out about RSVP through New Hope Housing. New Hope Housing, I was working with them and volunteering for them, and they suggested that I contact RSVP specifically for some of the benefits that they offered to their volunteers, like insurance, opportunities, as well as some reimbursement for some travel. And I thought it would be a good idea that I, contacted them. So I went to an orientation. RSVP performed at Alexandria on Duke Street, and I met Nadia. And during that orientation, lo and behold, there was a requirement, a need for a front office assistant at that time in the volunteering. And I fit the bill, and then I came down, and I've been doing so ever since that orientation almost 2 years ago.
That's fantastic. That's at the Volunteer Fairfax.
That's right.
Which is a program, RSVP is a program of Volunteer Fairfax, Volunteer Alexandria, and Volunteer Arlington. Now, you're very involved, to put it mildly, you're very involved in the Alexandria community. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you currently are involved with in nonprofits down in the Alexandria area?
Well, in Alexandria, I'm an ambassador for New Hope Housing, which is an Alexandria-based shelter, the Kennedy Shelter, and I do a lot of advocacy work for them. I started volunteering for New Hope Housing through my organization, a women's nonprofit organization, a charitable organization, Legems Incorporated. I founded the Northern Virginia chapter of Legems in 2013, and we immediately began to do work for the Kennedy Shelter. Things like serving meals, bringing Christmas baskets, preparing food for the children in the Reading Connection, and just a lot of work that we could to give back to the shelter. That was just one aspect of the work that I was doing. Shortly after beginning to do the work with New Hope Housing, I kind of upped my opportunities here with RSVP. And then that enabled me to do things like the FEMA preparedness workshops, giving gift baskets. We also actually did a food market down in Alexandria where we were able to set up and have people come and get supplies and get food. That was a wonderful experience to kind of really sit there and see the individuals in the city come and to partake of that. I was fortunate enough to be chosen to join the Alexandria Commission on Aging. And I'm a citizen member of the Alexandria Commission on Aging. And that gives me an opportunity to work with my passion about affordable housing and housing for seniors.
Well, let's talk about affordable housing for a sec. I think people in general, not everyone who lives in Northern Virginia, we're one of the richest areas in the country. And do you think sometimes people sort of forget, or maybe they don't even realize, that there are a rather significant portion of the population that are struggling?
If you turn the mean population in terms of those who are able to rent as versus those who are able to own, seniors in particular are impacted because of their limited resources, their income. They're strapped because the mean prices for the rentals can be $2,000 or better. That's more than the Social Security check that seniors get. And then not only finding that housing that's not only going to be tailored somewhat for seniors, is it close to transportation? Can they get to the doctors? Those kind of things are really important. But one small catastrophe can make that senior homeless.
boy,
And that's where we make that connection with the Commission on the Aging, with organizations like New Hope Housing, and RSVP, because we need those volunteers to come in and assist those seniors within programs that actually maybe taking them to the doctor. That's something that RSVP, advocates.
And you mentioned all the different needs. I think a lot of times when people think about volunteering, they think, oh my God, this is going to be a massive amount of obligation and time. But with some of the things you're talking about, a little bit can make a big difference.
It makes a tremendous difference. Just the gift of time is invaluable. When you can give 1 hour of yourself, it makes a difference in someone else's life. Meals on Wheels, for instance, we are involved in that. And if you come and you open that door and you're providing that meal, the individuals, the recipients, are glad to see you.
Sure.
Maybe that's the only contact they've had all day long.
Sure.
And now they've got nourishment as well as a friendly face.
Sure.
Also with the Meals on Wheels, you really look at the opportunity to take stock on how that senior is doing, because we can report back to base, there's something there, there's a problem, that senior didn't look so well.
That's great.
Or that they did not pick up the last package or something like that. So I think it's really important that we allow our human spirit to come through.
Exactly.
As we're actually going throughout the community and making that connection.
Exactly. And a lot of these opportunities that you're talking about that are available through RSVP and the other organizations that you work with, they don't require an immense, if any, training, really, or do they?
I think orientation is important.
Right.
So that you do have your playing field leveled. You have a set expectation of what the organization expects out of you, and in terms of just really how to kind of be of assistance and not be a hindrance.
Sure.
So I think it doesn't require hours of training, but certainly orientation is extremely important.
Right.
And understanding the mission of the organization that you're working with.
Exactly. No, that's a tremendous point. One of the other things I was going to say was on the affordable housing issue. I recently was down in the Route 1 area for an RSVP event, and I go down there once in a while. And in Alexandria, it just seems like those areas are being more redeveloped just at a faster pace than even 10 years ago. When a complex is redeveloped, that's usually not a good thing for affordable housing. Is that, or does that increase the issue or increase the challenge?
In the city of Alexandria, one of the roles of the Commission of the Aging as an advisory board to the city council and to the mayor, we actually have an opportunity to weigh in on new development, putting in recommendations in terms of what maybe a senior house or apartment should look like. Having an opportunity to weigh on that there's, should be, as the planning commission would do, a certain amount of affordable rentals within that new development. So the Commission on Aging has an actual opportunity to kind of meet with architects, to meet with planning boards, to meet with owners, to really kind of give their input in terms of those recommendations. And they work with AARP, they work with the Alexandria Housing Commission as well.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Why do you think it's important for seniors to get involved with volunteer organizations?
I believe that it really is an actual benefit for the senior themselves or the individual themselves, because of course RSVP, we're all 55 and older. It gives you a purpose. It, not that you didn't have a purpose, but I know for me personally, my husband passed away, my mom passed away, and I was previously caregivers for them, and I was retired, and I was looking for something to fill that void that was meaningful. And for me, it was an opportunity to give back to a community that had already given to me, and now I had a chance to share my talents, my skills, my stories, with individuals, and it just brought me a network of new friends and family that I'm so happy to be surrounded by.
Because that's something else about RSVP is that there are opportunities. You're not just sent out there in the wilderness and say, "Here, go do this." You do have a lot of opportunities to meet other people, and in a lot of cases, people your similar background, your similar age, and you'd say that's an advantage.
And there is just certainly an advantage, and then seeing the smiles on the faces of the people that you help. I did have an opportunity, to kind of help with the tax season through RSVP. And so, those individuals, certainly, tax season is fearful to all of us.
Sure.
And so people who may be less fortunate, who maybe, don't have the money to go through a fancy accountant, just that guidance and that assistance through those programs is priceless.
So you've done some volunteering with the Vita, the Vita group, and I recently did some research on Vita. They help at need residents get something like millions and millions of dollars in tax returns. Now that training
is particularly extensive.
That is extensive. That is extensive.
You have to do that to prepare yourself in order to do that.
Right.
But it's just the idea, whether you're actually preparing taxes or handing out forms or guiding individuals. I think that is crucial to the whole season and to the whole community, and have people having no fear in coming in and sitting down and giving that information.
Exactly, they're not intimidated, and I know the Vita, they have I forgot how many offices, but just several, maybe more than 10 offices across Northern Virginia. So we're looking for volunteers for Vita. We're actually coming up on that season. What other, as far as, well, let me ask you one other question. When you started volunteering, did you ever, you in a typical week or something, I think you volunteer at least 4 or 5 hours for RSVP at least.
Right. Normally I actually volunteer about 8 hours.
8 hours. I'm sorry, 8 hours.
Because I usually volunteer, once it's really like a morning over at New Hope Housing.
Right.
And it's a morning over here at RSVP.
That's great.
Volunteer Fairfax. On 2 different days, but in between that time, I've got my other commitments with the Commission on Aging, with Le Gems, and I left out my sorority, Gamma Phi Delta Sorority Incorporated, in which we do a lot of community work.
And they were just over at United Central Ministries in the last week or something,
exactly. So these talented women give of themselves their time, and so we just seek out any opportunity to help the organizations that are really out there doing the real work.
Exactly.
And we're just a small part of that, to be able to attach ourselves to them and say, hey, where's the need?
Right.
And they'll let us do that. And I think RSVP and Volunteer Fairfax really does a lion's share of the job in putting seniors in the right place for the right types of volunteer opportunities.
Right. No, that's a good point. And you seem, when you started getting involved with volunteering, did you ever think you were going to do as much as you were? I think a lot of people, I know I can say personally, I started volunteering and I thought I was going to do a few hours a week, and the next thing I know, I'm enjoying it. I'm doing a lot more. You seem almost busier now. You're a retired government worker, right?
That's right.
How long have you been retired for? And I think you might have mentioned that.
I retired in 2011.
Okay, so you've been retired for almost, 6 years roughly?
And I keep reminding myself I'm retired.
Right.
I keep saying that, but it's some part of my brain is not listening. And it's not that I'm obligated in terms of that, but on my personal commitment, when I give my word is my bond.
Sure.
And so if RSVP is expecting me, I want to show up.
Right.
So I don't want to take that lightly. It's important to me to keep my word. But I also know that if I call in and I say that I'm not well, or as in the case with me when I had a past medical scare, the community is so supportive, and they said, don't you dare come in here if you're not well.
Right.
So I think that we need to recognize that it's like anything else. You want to be able to, step away. You still can go on vacation.
Sure.
You still can, visit the grandchildren.
Sure.
All of things that you want to do when you retire.
Sure.
But it just gives you that extra opportunity to do something different.
That's really great. Well, I want to close on, is there anything else you want to add just about volunteering in general or senior volunteers? If there's anybody out there listening to this podcast that are sort of teetering, I'm about to do it, but I'm just, I'm not sure. Anything else you would like to add?
I would just like to say that even 1 hour is a bucket full to someone who needs that a little bit of assistance. It will be good for the senior. It'll be good for the individual who is, making that commitment of that 1 hour. So don't hesitate because you think I don't have the time. If it could be writing thank you cards.
Right.
You never know, but just go for it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, and I know you're going to be honored Thursday night at an Alexandria volunteer event, and congratulations ahead of time on that. That will probably be before this podcast airs, but we appreciate everything you do, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and your expertise on volunteering, and especially senior volunteering. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today on the RSVP Northern Virginia podcast. For Carly Hudicki and Nadia Hoonan, this is Rob Payne saying thanks and have a great day. Remember, RSVP Northern Virginia, matching great senior volunteers with great opportunities. For more information, please visit our website at www.rsvpnova.org. Have a great day.